Here are 10 things that we do as wives to try to control our husbands, and they absolutely don't work. But I like that in this book, she breaks down these 10 things, but then she also tells you the fear behind the thing that you're doing. So listen to this. Number one is making helpful suggestions. I've said things like, if you put things in file drawers, you'd be able to find them more easily. Or if you didn't fall asleep with the radio on, you'd sleep better and be more rested. This is her fear. His office, and therefore our house, would be messy. John would be tired and grumpy. The second thing is speaking on his behalf. And I know you've probably done this before. Somebody asks your husband a question and you start talking for him. Or somebody says something directly to your husband and you start responding for him because you feel like you need to do that. And that man was talking for himself before he met you. So people would ask him questions, doctors, waitresses, delivery people. And I would answer for him to make sure everything got the right information. Make sure that everyone got the right information and impression of our family. The fear is he would leave out important information and embarrass me. Number 3, making decisions for him. I told him how much to contribute to his 401k, which clothes to get rid of in the closet, and which phone he should buy. Since I believed I was smarter than he is, it was only logical for me to make those decisions. What's the fear? He would make the wrong decision, not the exact one that I had made, is the example that she gave. Number 4, shooting him disapproving looks. I frowned at the lettuce he brought because it was too wilted, grimaced when he talked about buying a new car because it was too expensive, and rolled my eyes at the shows he enjoyed. I was quieter, but just as bossy. So she's basically saying the shooting the disapproval look is very loud. We may think, well, I didn't say anything. I wasn't condescending. I wasn't rude. But your unspoken communication is very, very loud if you're shooting him looks of disapproval, right? So then the 5 is asking leading questions. I say things like, is that where you're going to eat for lunch? Do you have to leave so early to get there? And does that shirt go with those pants? Does this line of questioning make you want to smack me? Fear, he wouldn't be healthy. We'd have to be apart longer than we need to. And people would think I dressed him funny. So it's all about her and these fears, right? 6, announcing that we need to go to counseling. The underlying message, no matter how you look at it, is that he's a failure as a husband. In my experience, this wins hands down for the most expensive way to try to control your husband. The fear is I married the wrong guy and was never going to have the life I craved unless he changed. And I also think that a lot of these fears are rooted in the fact that, do you really think that you chose the right guy if you have these fears? Like if you feel like you have to speak for him because he's not that smart, if you feel like you have to make decisions for him because he constantly makes the wrong decision, if you feel like you have to shoot him looks of disapproval because he's doing things that you feel are detrimental to him or not what you would have wanted him to do, are you really confident in his ability to lead you? Because why do you always have so much input? How do you feel when you're somewhere and somebody's micromanaging you? Think of a job that you have where somebody was always looking over your shoulder as if you weren't competent in doing the job that you were hired to do. That's kind of how you make your husband feel when you always have input, when you're always giving these suggestions, when you're always doing these things. You're shooting him these disapproving looks, right? The next one is telling him how I would do things. This will be something like, I usually go slower on this road because it's so narrow. Those of you who like telling men how to drive, I used to be guilty. Or I would take my car for service if it was making that noise. It's amazing just how much I knew about practically everything back then. Are you that wife that you just know something about everything and you never shut up because you always got an opinion? Stop doing that, girl. That's aggravating. The fear is we would crash or we'd end up with a big unnecessary car repair bill that would put us in debt and I'd skip my pedicure. So the fears are all rooted in like her. The fears have nothing to do with her husband at all. Number 8 is criticizing him. Saying things like, don't you see you're being passive aggressive? Or it's just that you're such a slob, as if my insights would help him to finally understand the error of his ways and he would correct them right on the spot. Isn't that how human nature works? That's sarcasm. Fear is I wouldn't get a tender, thoughtful, attentive husband until he changed and I'd have to clean up his messes. And y'all know we talk about when we focus so much on trying to change our husbands when really we should just work on showing up as the best version of ourselves because they show up better when we are loving, honoring, and respecting them. And we don't like to talk about that because it makes us feel like we're stepping back into the 1950s. But girl, is it really stepping back into the 1950s to treat your husband with love and respect? Number 9 is making demands. I told him, you need to call your mom, or you have to diversify your portfolio. I felt this was okay because clearly I was right. The fear is I would be embarrassed in front of his family and we'd be broke when we grew old. Number 10 is undoing and redoing things he just done and then showing him how I did them, Raise your hand if you've done that before. I'm talking about important earth-shattering things like emptying the lint filter or making the bed. If I didn't constantly show him, how would he ever learn? Poor thing. Fear. I would have linty clothes and a lumpy bed or have to do everything myself. And I remember I said, if you have a particular way that you want something done, do it yourself, because it's not fair to make your husband and your children try to do things exactly the way that you would do them, because done is better than perfect. It doesn't matter if they don't make the bed the way that you like. If you really care about how the bed is made, you need to be the person to do it. If you really care about how the towels are folded, do it. But if you're going to complain about not having time and people not helping you, and they start helping you and they're not doing it the exact same way that you would do it, girl, you need to relax.